Right then, people, let's talk about this. What a classic. Liverpool versus Newcastle. And word of warning, we're going to have an adult conversation. So, like, if you can't be open with me and understand that, like, there are question mark concerns, growing pains when it comes to this Liverpool side, then this isn't probably the video or channel for you. But if you are that kind of person, then we're going to have a wicked conversation here. And I have true questions that I would like answers from you guys. Like, you watch your team, you understand your team, you think about your team probably more than I do. So talk to me, because I have question marks over this team right now, which, I mean, and it's one where it's like, don't deep it too much if you're a Liverpool fan. And I think if you're a Newcastle fan, you've got to be super proud about this team because of what occurred and what you had to go through, both in the context of the game, but even the game itself. Like, this was outstanding. Like, we're going to go through the disjointed nature of Liverpool, despite, of course, getting the victory. And then we're going to go through how they got it done in terms of that final goal, which was it's such a great team goal, even against 10 men, a valiant Newcastle and a valiant set of players here that really, really wanted it. And I mean, first off, I just got to Bruno G. This lad is such a player. Like, just getting the ball whenever he could and just creating just outstanding stuff. But it was a disjointed Liverpool side, and that's the first question I want to talk about. Is I'm going to make a little movement here. So these are the two lineups, and then if I do that, you'll see. And this is the JLA Tactics board, by the way. If you want to get your hands on the JLA Tactics board, you can have a look at and do screenshots. You can draw, willies. You can do that if you want to draw a willy. Go for it. Do you know what I mean? You can do whatever you want, and for a low price. Links in the description, as I said. So let's get into it, because that one little change there from this to this, and this is sort of Liverpool in possession, I would say. There were a couple of things at play here that I think are really, really crucial. I thought this was massive, and actually, in particular, these three here were absolutely integral. I'm going to draw another box here, because I thought this area of the pitch, which was available to Liverpool, but they couldn't access it, was down to the brilliance of these three here. And it was a very flat Newcastle fight, which is what we see all the time. We saw it last year as well. But because of the tenacity of those three, they weren't able to play the ball into these areas here really at all during the game. And Newcastle were the better team in the first half. I think we all have to kind of admit that and understand that. Like, they were up for it. But also, Liverpool were poor. It was a poor performance with them, and they were struggling. And I think two players were part of that. And if you think of the five there, and you think of these gaps in between, you think this idea that you kind of want Ekatike to be able to kind of get into the ball into those areas, and you want him and Wirtz to have a bit of fun and sort of dovetail between the two of them, right? I thought that was a real kind of problem in terms of the two being able to get on the ball in this game. And it was because, for me, Szoboszlai was... Let me take that off. Szoboszlai was just that little bit too narrow, and he didn't really feel comfortable both with the ball and without the ball. And I thought Kerkez, a similar thing. First adult question, can we have a conversation about Kerkez? Because I think Kerkez is obviously such an exciting player, but in isolation, Liverpool fans, when you bought him, did you think he was going to be playing the role that he's playing? Now, he can grow into this role. I'm sure he can. But I think what's going to be difficult for him is that people won't, and they're not going to turn on him, but they might. The role that he's playing is very conservative. He's in these areas really a lot of the time. Kind of just, I mean, of course he's here because he's getting on the ball a lot more here. But in terms of Van Dijk, he's just chilling here. He's not high and wide. He's not up here, which is where we know him for when it comes to Bournemouth, getting up, getting forward. Those crosses we all remember against Man City, getting to the byline. We aren't seeing that at all. Now, is that for the good of the team? I think obviously that's what Arne Slot thinks, and that's totally understandable, and like, that's cool. But it just does feel like a little bit of a waste of him. But I think in the game today, that was the part of the difficulty. Is like you had someone like Szoboszlai on the other side, who is someone who kind of wants to step in. And in terms of the team last year and this year, I think the difficulty here was then with that five of Newcastle, they were really, really struggling to get it through those lines. And therefore, Salah was barely touching the ball. And second adult question, are we ready? Florian Wirtz. Now, I really enjoy the idea that Ekitike drops and Wirtz can be that false nine. Is that the best use of a player of Wirtz's quality? Because if we're honest with that, there's a feeling that he's kind of making these like sacrificial runs, isn't he? As Ekitike steps and then he goes. Now they're effective, and we'll show you how effective they were. It led to the second goal. Those two working together. So it's a nuanced discussion. It's not a bad thing. But Wirtz, I think, had 39 touches in this game. He normally has about 70 or 80. So is he having the freedom that he wants? And is Ekitike kind of getting into his space? Because Wirtz, you don't want kind of through on goal either, do you? I know he's made a couple of great runs kind of when these two have worked together and he's worked across. But yeah, growing pains, right? Conversation. Can you believe it? You can. We can. Let's move on to this, because that high press from Newcastle had to be applauded for me. And again, it was those three: Tonali, Joe Linton, and Bruno G together all the time. And Tonali constantly was kind of had those arms out, going like, "Come here! I want to know that you're here," all the time. And both the mix between those fullbacks being that little bit too tight, and then that midfield three being as flat as they were and so together, I think that was a big reason why, first of all, they were able to be dominant in the game. But secondly, we're able to, really kind of hang in there in the second half. Because in the second half, they were able to go to a 4-3-2 and stay in the game. But because of that kind of narrowness of Liverpool, I think Liverpool struggled to get the ball through into these areas. If we take Gordon out, and can we just talk about Gordon for a second? What's he doing? Well, he just absolutely killed them. It's just a disaster. He'd worked so hard. Obviously, I get it. He's running. But the tackle, what are you doing, man? There's no excuse. It's obviously a red. Of course it is. He's got a whole tram line on his leg. Anyone saying opposite is just what are you on about? I'm all for a tackle, and there were loads of them, and I loved it. But he just absolutely killed them, didn't he? But what they then did was Harvey Barnes and Elanga came in here, and then you had these three here. Trippier was ready to jump when he was going to, try and have to do that. Livramento the same on the other side. But because of this narrowness, once again, it still felt like, with all the effort that Guimaraes and Joelinton could put in either side to get across, but also if the ball came through those central areas to step in, and then Tonali now stepping onto someone like Gravenberch, because someone like Jones would have moved up, they were able to sort of still deal with this central area pretty well. And it was one where Liverpool maybe had got the goals and they stopped. Maybe that's the case. But there's just some question marks here, I've got to say. And they just seemed a little bit out of sorts for me. And I think this is a great example of those half spaces that they weren't able to totally get on. Here's a great example, because look, Szoboszlai he's saying calm down, take your time. Salah totally out of shot, which is fine. You've got Florian Wirtz looking to make a run. Ekitike's coming to feet. He wants that ball sort of zinged into him. Doesn't do it. Dan Burn, who was generally really, really tight to Ekitike throughout the game, he doesn't really know what to do here. But then Konaté, he doesn't know what to do with himself. He's a little bit out of sorts at the moment. Now, look, form goes up and down, okay? And again, I think it's one where last season he would have known exactly what he was doing. And Gravenberch, he actually would have been wider, wouldn't he? He would have been in this area here, probably. And Gravenberch would have been here, and he would have picked the ball off him. He might have used that. He had that triangle going on there, and he had players in different positions. This year, it's just new faces, and it just feels really disjointed, despite having all that space here. Now, again, down to Newcastle being really, really tight in what they're doing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Working really hard to not allow those passes in. And what it leads to, in this instance, is a long ball. Dan Burn completely reads it, and then they're on the break. And constantly, then in transition, you've got two fullbacks who are a lot more narrow than normal, and there's still these gaps. And there was a lot of joy. And it's ironic, isn't it? You do wonder, I'm going to say it, if Isaac's playing, they're definitely one up, aren't they, at one point? Like, surely. Because they got so much joy in these wide areas. It's one where I wonder, is Isak here as opposed to that back stick? But okay, you kind of understand it because Szoboszlai's back there and you think you've got a better chance. But Anthony Gordon, you know, he says he's a forward, but do you really see him as a forward? He had a header at one point. I don't totally see it, if I'm honest. I think he's just so much more electric on that left-hand side, but you got Harvey Barnes there as well, so it's awkward. But he was fantastic in the game. He was keeping, you know, just putting it all together. But that finishing instinct, that would be obviously something that he wants to kind of work on. This is the moment. Like, I don't need to go into it anymore. It's a mess. What's he doing? But that 3, because of the narrowness of the 4 here, it just gave them a chance just to stay in the game. Now, you need players with huge energy. This is much later in the game, actually. Lewis Miley's come on by this point. But it gives you that chance to kind of, you know, attack, but also not kind of hurt yourself and stop those passes into those areas there with Florian Wirtz. I'm going the wrong way there, but you know what I mean. This way round. So Kirkers here, I just feel like he's struggling a little bit. Like, it's not he's struggling, it's just he's slowing it down. And he's slowing down the block of the whole team because it allows them to all stay together. Whereas I think if you're stretching it, which we're going to see for the final goal, it makes a massive, massive difference. And the work rate that they put in, it was absolutely outstanding. And to lose the players that they've lost again, like Newcastle fans, you just must absolutely hate Liverpool right now in the sense of like losing Isak, but losing Tonali, losing Joe Linton, losing Shah, losing Gordon in the game. I feel like I'm missing someone as well. I think there's another player, isn't there? Maybe not. But they did well. They did really, really well, Newcastle. And then again, on this other side, again, just that little bit too narrow, I think, at times. I think you can mix it up. Here, it just allows that 3 to stay in the game. Shift across, and then if you play through the middle, we can deal with that as well. Absolutely fantastic from Eddie Howe in terms of his game plan with this team. Let's talk about the goals. And let's start with the first goal. Here we go. So, interestingly enough, in terms of that high press from Newcastle, it was actually kind of what, in my opinion, undid them a little bit. Because, kind of, I mean, God, look, obviously I'm not a Premier League footballer, but I've been there when it comes to, like, being in a central area, maybe not really wanting the ball. And what I want to focus on here is this. So, without the ball, Joe Linton was right on Gravenberch throughout the game, not letting him get on the ball at any point. And so they were kind of close to each other a lot of the time. So then there's a throw on down here, of course, which leads to the goal. And if you go back and watch that, what you'll see is that I don't think Joe Linton really wants the ball. He's sort of quite timid for probably the first time in the whole game. And it leads to him giving the ball away. And so Gravenberch does brilliantly. Oh, got the wrong one. He does brilliantly, gets on the ball, and he's able to nick it. And the ripple effect, shall we say, available on all great podcasting platforms. He wins the ball, and then from there, it's great play from Gravenberch, but it means that then as they move along, all of a sudden, Joe Linton now needs to get back. The ball works its way down the side, and Joe Linton's dealing with Wirtz, and now Bruno, who's been trying to help out, solve the whole situation, he needs to make his way over to Gravenberch. Now, I am nitpicking here because it's cruel and it's a strike that's like really unfortunate to make it through all that. And look, it's a great strike. It's a really, really great strike. I'm not taking away from the strike, but it felt like a cruel goal at the time. Like gorgeous technique. We love it. But to get through all of that and it's pretty impressive stuff. But it shows how thin the lines are and how, Liverpool just keep going. They just keep going at it. The second goal I really, really enjoyed because when we're talking about Dan Burn, what Dan Burn did throughout the game, I thought he was really, really good at staying tight. And so the difference between having 10 men and 11 men on the pitch, that ability to stay right up Ekitike and not allow him to turn, that kind of went at certain moments. And 20 seconds into the game, it was the first time that Ekitike had been able to get on the ball and turn. And the reason being is Dan Burn had a split second. He couldn't go tight with him because, and this is the other side of it, this is why we can have these kind of conversations. Like I've just said, I'm not sure about Wirtz and Ekitike in those two roles. Now, this second goal, the starting point of that is Wirtz making that run. And because Dan Burn sees him making that run, those early deep runs, which Slot is, his teams are famed for, it means that he leaves Ekitike and he gets on his bike. And it means that Ekitike can then get on the ball here and turn and drive. And he is so dangerous when he does that. Any other team in the Premier League's got to stay so tight with him. And as he moves on, he's then able to get so far. He's able to hold off, I think it's Livramento maybe in this instance. Oh, no, it can't be. Not sure it is. But he's able to hold off the player. And look, he gets a little bit of luck. Gakpo has that shot and then it falls for him. But in terms of working their way up the pitch in that moment, that all comes from Ekitike being able to turn and having those 10 men, which obviously I know it sounds obvious, but it's like Anthony Gordon, you've absolutely done your team in there because Dan Burn would have been able to be tight and that second goal doesn't happen, even if the first goal does happen. It's just like it's just a real letdown for this team. The Newcastle goals are pretty simple goals, so I mean I don't know if it's worth even going through them really, but one thing you would say, again, kind of Kirke's back post. Is that something to be concerned about in any way? I don't know. Let's keep an eye on that one. Are the fullbacks going to be targeted this season for Liverpool? Obviously, the space in behind in transition is going to be one for sure. But the other one, of course, is just giving yourself a chance. And having someone like Dan Burn in your team, what a performance by him, like throughout. But just being able to put that big ball up, top to Burn, him get the flick on, great running behind, and a cracking finish as well. And Newcastle, they deserved it, didn't they? But it wasn't to be. And the reason it wasn't to be was because of some absolutely fantastic play. And it was one where you wondered, is it this Liverpool side with the individuals that they've got? Was it one where they go, actually, let's turn it on? And let me show you exactly what they did. Again, this is why Anthony Gordon has hurt this team and why they've not won the game today. Because if we talk about that 3 and that 2, this was just really great play from Liverpool. They worked from one side to the other side. And if we talk about the fullbacks, I think this is Conor Bradley right here. So now all of a sudden, you've got your fullback a bit higher up. That means Salah can come in. You've got your centre forward. And actually, Szoboszlai's up here at this point. But at this moment in time, they're all okay. They've all got a man each. So how do you make that extra man count? Well, up, back, through. Really clever play by Harvey Elliott with his back to goal. Just that bit, maybe that chemistry of those three players that are used to playing with each other that little bit more, and also that added width as well of the fullback, probably for one of the first times. And of course, Nagamoa on the left-hand side is not even in shot in this moment. And you move it along, and it allows them to take those three players out of the game. And now, all of a sudden, 1, 2, 3, 4, and let's have a closer look here. Salah. He's saying, give it to Chiesa. They know exactly what they're doing here. And that's the thing. It's that chemistry. So it's not one where like, oh, Liverpool rubbish now. That's not what this is about. It's about the growing pains of a team, the chemistry and how you're slowly trying to build that. And so in this moment, when you've got players that have actually been together maybe for a year, it all felt a little bit more together. Szoboszlai in his actual normal position as well. And so that up, back and through takes those three players out of the game. And now all of a sudden you've got, as I say, 1, 2, 2, 3, 4, 5 against 4, and then some great play from there. Sorry, I got the wrong way. And all of a sudden, and that's an assist pretty much. Sometimes you don't have to touch the ball to make a pass, and it absolutely takes the player out of the game. And of course, the goal is then scored. Great finish as well. Really, really good stuff. So a great bit of play to get them over the line, and that's the quality that they have, which will get them out of trouble. But there are question marks defensively. There are question marks in terms of this team feeling comfortable together, trying to get the ball in those half spaces. It's going to take a minute, but they got the job done. Newcastle, outstanding. Anthony Gordon, in more ways than one, that's the ripple effect of you making a really silly decision there. And it's hurt your team, and it's cost you a game, and it's cost you an iconic draw as well. Because if you don't have 10 men, then that goal just doesn't happen.